We'd like to take a minute to thank all the veterans that shared their stories with us.
Because without you, none of this would be possible.
You were soldiers then, and you're soldiers now, and your continued commitment to our nation won't be overlooked.
And this film is in honor of all of those who have bravely served their country. And we hope that the stories told by the few profiled in this film speaks to the souls of all veterans.
My name is Robert Gray. I was stationed at Fort McClellan from July of 1998 through December of 1998. I was with Bravo Company, 795 Military Police Battalion. It's something my mother said to me before I left. So actually, when I told her I joined the Army, she was very upset, and she looked at me and said that they're going to use you. You're nothing but a number to them. You know, they're going to experiment with things on you without your knowledge and this and that.
Fort McClellan, Alabama. This fort was used to train soldiers for World War I, World War II, Korea, and the Vietnam War. The fort became the home of the U.S. Army Chemical Corps and Training Battalion, the Women's Army Corps and Museum, and the U.S. Army Military Police Corps and Training Battalion for the Army and Marines. But Fort McClellan has been hiding a deadly secret.
There's something fundamentally wrong there.
A secret for over 80 years.
He asked me then, he goes, have you had chemical exposure? He says, because that's one of the signs for chemical exposure.
A secret so deadly, it would change lives for generations. Fort McClellan sits at the foothills of the Appalachian Mountains adjacent to the city of Anniston. Originally established as Camp McClellan in 1917 with 18,952 acres, McClellan grew to 45,679 acres by the time the EPA closed down the fort in 1999. The average population was approximately 10,000 military personnel and 1,500 civilian workers, all of which were exposed to toxins.
Unlike most toxic chemical agents, nerve agents can enter the body anywhere. They can be inhaled through the nose and mouth. When they enter this way, they work very rapidly. They can be absorbed through the eyes. This way, too, they take effect very quickly. When absorbed through the skin, they do not take effect as quickly, but the effects are the same.
Toxins such as nerve agents, sarin gas, VX gas, mustard agent, blister agent, cobalt-60, cesium-17, depleted uranium, PCBs, TCEs.
My heart doctor, when she examined me, she asked had I ever been exposed to any chemicals.
I pledge allegiance to the flag.
I pledge allegiance to the flag.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America.
Of the United States of America.
Of the United States of America, and to the republic for which it stands.
And to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God.
Under God.
Under God.
Under God.
Under God.
Indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
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 In order to find proof that the Department of the Army had been poisoning soldiers, one would think that we needed to go to the National Archives, maybe the Library of Congress, or even down some dark, twisted stairwell deep in the bowels of CIA headquarters in Virginia. But nope. We Googled it. And there it was. Before our wondrous eyes, it did appear. Department of Army documents speaking loud and clear, stating, yes, toxins were dumped here. So from Dr. Seuss to Dr. Moreau, but this laboratory is not on some sandy-beached tropical island. This one happens to be located in the northeastern corner of the state of Alabama.
He left to join the training infantry brigade at Fort McClellan. She was in the Women's Army Corps with about 10,000 others. A devoted spouse and mother, willing to prove how much she loved it. The place was overwhelming, but in a good way, an extended family. So when she
did the EPA discover that the Department of Defense and the Department of Army had turned Fort McClellan into a Dr. Moreau human experiment laboratory? No, we're not saying that the Department of Defense and Army was turning soldiers into animals. Or are we? As the wise words, these bullets take time to sink in, but nonetheless, this is cutthroat. Would it be treason to think to myself, where the love goes? After her service, she starts. What we do know for a fact, according to Department of Defense, Army, and EPA documents, is that there was toxic exposure at Fort McClellan. Our hero had a heart attack in his early 30s. That's unheard of. His doctor informed him he had diabetes. But yet, the Army kept sending troops to train and work at Fort McClellan for decades. Duty, honor, country. An oath fulfilled by the soldier and disregarded by the government. According to the Department of Defense and the Army, there never has been any kind of toxic exposure. Yet document after document clearly states contamination and remediation. Many of those documents have the DoD and DOA letterhead on them. Delay, deny, until they die, as Captain Irish would say.
And when were you stationed here at Fort McClellan?
I was here from October of 89 until January of 90.
November 83 to March 84, and then summer of 94 here for BNOC.
May to July 1977.
I was stationed here August through November of 1985.
I was stationed here at Fort McClellan in 1984 from June until October.
And I came to basic and MP school here in April of 78.
I was stationed here for basic training at Fort McClellan, Alabama in August of 1979.
I served from September of 1978 through September 1982.
I joined the Army in May of 1984.
I was an MP at Fort McClellan, February '89, and then I came back and was stationed there with the MP company in 1990.
It will be possible to see its effect. The visible symptom here is a loss of coordination. The goat's muscles begin twitching. The trembling and twitching of the animal's muscles will soon become full-scale convulsions. When this happens, breathing becomes impaired, and the goat will die from paralysis of the muscles that control breathing. The total time, less than 2 minutes.
Now, let's take a moment and hear what some Fort McClellan veterans have to say about their time spent at the fort.
We did all kinds of bivouacs, out digging foxholes, stuff like that in the mud, and what is now the contaminated soil out here. Of course, drinking the water. They bring out the big water trucks and stuff like that when there was just, the potable water out there. At that time was all, as far as I know, it was all groundwater.
Yes, I feel as though my book that I brought home was not the only souvenir. I'm pretty well determined. I have developed degenerative disc disease early on in my 20s. Got sarcoidosis, which is scarring in my lungs. I've got a lot of other health issues developed with regard to my hands, numbness, tingling, shortness of breath, sleep issues, which I pretty much developed or acquired here at Fort McClellan.
I was 40 years old, not overweight, no family history, had 3 heart attacks. 2 years ago, I had a lymph node removed. Thought it was a healthy lymph node. Turned out it was a very rare type of cancer. Well, I was diagnosed 8 years ago with multiple sclerosis. I know there's no history in my family of it. Started out with severe neurological problems. Went through 9 years of testing and this and that and the other, and finally they did a spinal tap and found it in my neck, in my blood, and in my brain.
I started my 40th birthday, I spent it in the hospital I was born in West Palm, having my gallbladder out because I was having such severe stomach pains. And to this day, they have yet to find out what those severe stomach pains are. And I still have them, and they'll shut me down. They'll get me to where I'm just shut down. My spine's completely encrusted with arthritis. I got degenerative joint disease in both knees. I had my first heart attack in January 13th of 2003, or 2004, I'm sorry. First one was in 2004. I've had 3 more since. I've got 6 stents.
I started getting sick in my 20s. I had a hysterectomy when I was 25. I had a goiter removed. I had hypothyroidism. I have RA, I have heart arrhythmias, I have Sjogren's syndrome, I have acid reflux, high blood pressure, high cholesterol.
Anyway, but after the gas chamber, I had a cough that wouldn't go away. I had an earache that didn't stop. And I started noticing tumors showing up on the side of my neck.
I first started having problems where I was dragging my right leg, dragging my right foot when I was about 25 years old. I didn't do anything about it. I just figured it'd go away. I figured it was just back problems because I had a lot of pain in my back. But then my hands started shaking, and I couldn't walk very good. And I went to a neurologist because my early practice. And the neurologist diagnosed me with Parkinson's disease.
Over the past few years, my health has progressively gotten worse. I've got degenerative disc disease. I've got polyneuropathy. I have IBS, GERD, chronic migraines. I mean, everything that everyone else has got. I've got the list of all the health issues. I'm tired of the VA giving me pills.
Yeah, because I know some folks have had issues. I've been lucky. One of my friends, he's had cancer 4 times. He was stationed here at the MP school as an instructor. I'm not sure if he went to basic here or not. I think he did though. And then most of his assignments were at special weapons sites. And he had cancer multiple times, and now he's got some other problems going on, and nobody seems to have an answer.
Let me ask you this. Would you want your children going to school here?
I cry a lot. I have PTSD, and that don't help either. I'm very emotional about all this, and matter of fact, I cried all the way up here just because my fellow veterans. I'm very compassionate for what they're going through, and my heart really goes out to each and every one of them that we were poisoned and didn't even know that they hid it from us, and it just is a real touchy subject for me, especially for my kids, watching them almost die from something that I blame myself a lot for it, and it's not my fault that they got sick, but it's just really emotional. I don't even know what to say, because the VA acts like they don't even care when you go in. I had a CAT scan 5 months ago on my lymph nodes because they think I have lymphoma, and I've still got no results. And I've called over and over and over, and they still won't give me the results to the CAT scan.
That was from the VA?
A lot of the doctors I've talked to claim that I have no history in my family. I have never had any issues prior to being here, and there's too many bizarre things going on with me internally. They cannot figure all of it out, private doctors.
Have you gone to the VA for any sort of assistance with medical coverage?
No, I'm very concerned about going to the VA. I feel as though I was lied to being here, and I do not trust them at this moment.
It seems like the soldiers have always been second-class citizens in this country. We saw it after Vietnam, when the Vietnam vets came back. We saw just the opposite after Desert Storm when we came back. And then now the way they're treating the soldiers that are coming home today, it's just soldiers just don't seem to be, higher class citizens anymore.
Have you had any recent dealings with the VA at all?
Yes, in fact, I just swapped back from, I was originally a patient down here at the Birmingham VA, and then switched to Memphis, and it's taken me literally almost a year to finally get re-enlisted back down here into the VA in Birmingham. In fact, I have an appointment next week to catch up on my physicals and stuff like that.
No. I filed a claim last year and was awarded for a back injury that happened while I was here. And it's like 30%, but they denied the MS, although it's a presumptive illness.
I filed the claim for the HR 411, which wasn't in effect, still isn't in effect, but the lady at the VA filled out the paperwork, and I just a couple weeks ago got a letter denying my claim, denying that there was any chemical exposure whatsoever at Fort McClellan, and denying any chemicals here at Fort McClellan.
No chemicals at Fort McClellan. No chemicals at Fort McClellan? We researched the implication that there was no chemicals used at Fort McClellan. What we found is pretty compelling evidence. Here is a Department of Army Safety Evaluation report dated April 2005, 6 years after Fort McClellan closed. It shows which buildings chemical and nuclear items were stored. Oh, and let's not forget that Fort McClellan was home to the U.S. Army Chemical Corps. So are there really no chemicals stored at Fort McClellan? These veterans and their health problems are a result of toxic exposure. Exposure they obtained while at Fort McClellan, Pelham Range, and the city of Anniston. An exposure that will affect their lives and their children's lives till their death. You want to know how strong is Army strong? Look one of these vets in the eyes. See how they carry on in life, knowing death is but a chromosome away. Until that fateful day, they remain prisoners trapped inside a toxic shell.
This is Dan Bedondi reporting for the InfoWars Nightly News. And today we're going to have a special report about Monsanto in Fort McClellan, Alabama. From 1935 to 1999, when Fort McClellan was open, hundreds of thousands of our troops got poisoned and radiated by Monsanto. And today we're going to interview several people that are going to give their testimony of what happened at Fort McClellan.
Hi, my name's Sal Cayozzo. I served at Fort McClellan, Alabama in 1981 for basic training as well as AIT for military police training.
Hi, my name's Dennis Tremblay. I served with the 43rd Military Police Brigade, 119th MP Company. I was stationed in Fort McClellan, Alabama for United States Army military police training. 95 Bravo was the MOS.
Well, I guess in the 1960s to 1970, Monsanto had a factory on the outside gate, one of the gates. And basically what had happened was they had PCB leaks that polluted the whole area. Now, we all know PCBs stay in the ground. They just don't go away.
I suffer from chronic joint pain. I've had my gallbladder removed when I was 28 years old. Kind of young to have that removed.
A number of other things too. I ended up with fibromyalgia.
Dan Bedondi for the InfoWars Nightly News. Last year we did a special in-depth report of Fort McClellan troops being poisoned by Monsanto. There were over 700,000 U.S. military veterans who served and trained at Fort McClellan, Alabama, not to mention the many citizens who live in Anniston, Alabama.
Just one of a fast-growing number of former soldiers who have come forward claiming exposure to toxic chemicals on the base has caused not just cancer, but other horrible health problems.
We see so much death.
Then there's Anniston itself. The city is toxic. Chemical giants Monsanto and Solutia have shelled out more than $1 billion in damages and cleanup costs after the massive plant on the other side of town dumped tons of dangerous PCBs into the air, ground, and water for decades.
So, where do I begin? The asinine irony here is that you essentially have the entire free world shouting and pointing to the undeniable truth that some really bad stuff was dumped and buried at Fort McClellan. And then you have the U.S. Army and Department of Defense standing in front of you, hands covered in the very toxic slime they adamantly deny is or ever was at the base. I mean, just uttering the words send me into a rage that makes me want to punch somebody. But I digress. One of, if not the main problem facing the veterans from Fort Mac is that the denial of truth by the Army and DOD is what is killing some of these vets. Their denial is why the VA won't help these folks. So in order to add fuel to my fire, let's talk about Monsanto and the almighty dollar, shall we?
It's not acceptable. You know something went wrong. You just do not arbitrarily give $700 million to the city of Anniston.
In 2001, the not-so-great yet extremely powerful manufacturing company Monsanto, which had a factory in Anniston near the base, paid $43 million to the residents of Anniston, Alabama, for polluting the town's water supply with PCBs. Keep in mind that this is the exact same water supply as the base, and just in case you were wondering, no soldiers were recipients of this windfall of cash. Also, PCBs are a substance used as a coolant for electrical system, and exposure to them can not only kill you, but can also permanently alter your DNA, causing a host of degenerative disorders that you can pass along to your children, which in a very disturbing way means that one of the upsides to exposure to PCBs could be death. Then in August of 2003, Monsanto once again paid a large sum of money to the good folks of Anniston, this time to the tune of $700 million. And like the last time, the veterans and the base were left out of the settlement. Now don't get me wrong, I enjoy hypocrisy as much as the next guy, but this little tidbit should really get your blood boiling. It's rumored there was a document buried amongst the tens of thousands of documents linked to the Monsanto settlement stating that the U.S. government would take care of the veterans from Fort McClellan, and that there was no need to add them or the base itself in the settlement agreement. But of course, just like Fort McClellan veterans' medical records, this document too has been lost to the gods of incriminating evidence. So as these veterans continue to fight, never surrender, as they were taught, they seemingly find themselves in a very precarious position. Their need for justice versus their need to live. So what do they do next? What is their next move?
Well, I'm really not sure. You know, I just battle through my health issues, and you know, it's upsetting. You know, like I go with my friends, and I have to deny doing or turn down doing things that I used to do. I can't do anymore. I live in pain 24/7. I'm just trying to get my medical issues at least handled. But
now, some of the other vets that you mentioned, you got in touch with via Facebook. Have they, to your knowledge, have they done anything to try to find resolution?
Well, they're all just finding out about this, you know, Fort McClellan also. I have, you know, my friend John, he had a heart transplant 12 years ago. My friend Richard, he's had a heart attack and he just had kidney cancer and he had 1.5 of his kidneys removed. My friend Patrick, who went to basic here with and also went to Miesau, Germany, 164th MP Company. We were stationed there together. He died 7 years ago from bone cancer. You know, we're all just finding out about Fort McClellan within the last couple of years. You know, like I said earlier, I blamed my ancestors and used to tell all my siblings, y'all owe me big time.
Have you talked to the Army at all, or tried to reach out to the Army?
Well, the last heart attack I had, I was actually in getting a heart cath done while I had the heart attack. And after it was all over with, the doctor was showing me on the screen everything that went on. And then he comes around to the back of the heart and he goes, let me show you this here. And he points to the picture and he says, you see that there? That deformed looking worm? He goes, that's one of your arteries. He says, that's supposed to be a very smooth artery, easy flowing. He says, yours as well. We just found out about Fort McClellan last year, and you know, we're trying to get, you know, Health Registry Act passed for Fort McClellan. And I said, could you please note that in my file that that's possible chemical contamination? I was supposed to meet with that heart doctor 2 weeks for a follow-up. He never showed. I never seen him again. I don't know his name, and it's not in my file anywhere that was possible chemical exposure. I have talked to my primary care doctor about it, and he says there's nothing they can do. They can't test me for it until it's noted that I have possible chemical contamination.
I think somebody owes all of us that were stationed here an utmost apology for what went on down here. I truly would like an apology.
Is there anything else that you would like to talk about in relation to your time spent here? Good and bad, good memories, bad memories?
It was a very good turning point in my life. The drill sergeants were conditioning your mind and body. It was a help through my life, positive. as far as being trained in life, doing what I do, and I'm thankful for that. And I just feel as though it's just a part of my life that you start out at 18 years old and you're very naive to what goes on. So none of us here knew anything till later on in life.
Any sort of advice that you would like to give to young men that are sign on that dotted line anymore?
Get everything in writing you can nowadays. That's all I can say. And the reason I am 90% here today is for my fellow veterans. I'm also in the American Legion and do a lot of volunteer work, and I just feel very sorry for my fellow Americans that have been here.
If you had an opportunity to speak to anyone, whether it was policymaker, law person, people in the VA, what would you like to say to them in regards to Fort McClellan and the abandonment issues?
Just Fort McClellan and just the military in general, what they've done in this country as far as closing bases and stuff like that. They've just kind of ignored everybody. And I think a lot of it's just the fact that we're just a small minority of the makeup of the U.S. We're a very small voting bloc. And unfortunately, I think we're kind of overlooked, even though we're one of the more vocal, I believe.
Okay. Do you have any sort of stories that you'd like to share about your time here at McClellan? Good, bad?
It was all pretty good. I had already been a police officer, been through the police academy before I came here, which made it a little rougher on me from the drill sergeants. But other than that, I had a great time. It was the start of a big chapter in my life that's still going on today. Still friends with a lot of folks that I served with.
I have known about, I knew there was something that Fort McClellan did to me. And it wasn't until about 2006 where I met this woman named Irish, who generally she told me all my problems is the same problems that everyone else was happening. It was due to Fort McClellan. So, Irish unfortunately has since passed. In 2000. I want you out of the way, like they threw away Fort McClellan. They're throwing us away. When we came into the military, got off the trains, I remember they lined us all up. And they said, look to the left of you, look to the right of you. These are the people who you're going to rely on the rest of your life, because no one's going to give a damn. And I can see a promise. You promised that you will take care of us afterwards. When we sign the check that says we give everything, including our lives, to you. And you're hiding this shit. You're hiding what's happening here, and you're just saying there's no problem. And there is a problem. There's a serious problem.
I'm sorry. Have you talked to the VA at all about your medical conditions?
I brought it up once, and they said there is no chemical exposure in Fort McClellan.
And that's where we're running into a lot of problems, because we can't find any physicians that are willing to say, yes, this could have been and most likely was caused by what you were exposed to. They're afraid. They're afraid. They just don't want to go down. I mean, they'll admit it in their office, but they won't commit to it. And we're not the only ones who have that problem getting doctors to commit. I don't know if it's because of lawsuits or I don't know why. You would think that because they're doctors, they would want to help their patients in any way they could. And it's not going to cost them anything to say, yes, I believe this is probably caused by what you were exposed to. But, my doctor actually got up and walked out of the room and released me as his patient, because he couldn't argue the point. He says, I told you, I'm not a brain surgeon. I'm a neurologist. I'm not an EPA specialist. I'm a neurologist. You have MS. Deal with it.
So what now Where has this fight led you to at this point?
Trying to find a doctor who will stand up and trying to get the government to acknowledge what we've been through and what we've been exposed to, and to acknowledge that we aren't the only one. There's hundreds, thousands of people that have been here and have all kinds of problems, medical problems. Their children have problems. We need help from the government. We need them to acknowledge that we have problems caused by being here. We agreed to serve our country. They can now help us.
If you had those policymakers here now, whether they're politicians or somebody from the VA or somebody from the White House staff, whoever it may be, what would you say to them? What do you want to say to them?
Believe us. Believe that we were poisoned. We came here in good faith to do a job. And they're killing us. Help us. You're killing us. We're dying, and we need help. We weren't drafted. No, we weren't. We volunteered. And women in the Army back in '77, it was, you usually were a clerk. So I was a mechanic. It wasn't common for a woman to sign up for the U.S. Army. And the thing is, we were willing to give our lives for our country, but not like this. Not because they dumped crap here and didn't bother to tell us. That's not the way I pictured if I was going to die from being in the military. That's not the way I pictured it. Not a prolonged illness, not a scary, the C word is about the scariest thing you can ever hear. And I just never imagined that the Army would do that. Yeah, maybe getting shot somewhere. Yeah, but no, not this. We'd gladly have given our life on a battlefield. Yeah, wherever they wanted. But not like this.
When you talk about the help that they need, what help are they not getting?
The Department of Defense is denying that there's any kind of toxic exposure at Fort McClellan, which in turn means that they can't go to the VA and claim toxic exposure for their ailments and get the health care through the VA system.
So the VA is refusing them health care?
Absolutely. Because there's no proof, they're saying, because the Department of Defense says it just...
Even with the EPA report?
Yeah, even with the EPA report. Which is mind-boggling, right? How do you choose out of 15 bases? And that wasn't the first time that Fort McClellan was on the list to get closed down. It had been on the list 4 times prior to it finally being shut down. And it was just as toxic then as it is today. 5 weeks ago, the city of Anniston was given $56 million or $52 million to finish the cleanup of Fort McClellan. 5 weeks ago.
Where'd that money come from?
The Department of the Army gave them the money to clean it up. And I've been there. I went and looked to see what they were cleaning up. And they say it's for unexploded ordnance. I didn't see them out there digging up any place where there's unexploded. They're digging up dirt. They're digging up gravel right in the middle of the base, right across from where the old PX was and the movie theater. And a lot. They're digging up dirt. I saw it with my own 2 eyes. Shit. If they're trying to be sneaky and hide stuff, they're just not very good at it. And it's oh my God. It's bullshit to me that you could take young kids and imprint on their mind this thing of loyalty and honor and integrity and duty and country, and then turn around and not own up to your own shit. It's like a big slap in the face, do as I say, not as I do. And it's unacceptable. It's unacceptable when I was 18, and it's unacceptable now that I'm in my 40s. And I'm not going to stand for it. I refuse to stand for it. Someone's going to own up to this shit, and I don't care who does it. I don't care who owns up to it, but someone needs to get something done, because in the next 10 years, who knows what I'll get, you know, because these things, they mess up your genetics, you know. I may be 50 years old and sitting in a hospital on a respirator because my lungs are collapsing because of some mutation in my respiratory system. You know, they don't know, and that's probably why, because they don't know, and they just don't care. It has nothing to do with them. But if we took water and soil and potted a plant in it and gave it to them up there in the Pentagon and said, here, have some nice stuff. Here's an apple tree. You think they're going to eat it? Hell no.
I want acknowledgement. I want them to take responsibility. I would really like to have my babies back, but that's not going to happen now. I've been telling the doctors about being exposed to the chemicals here. Some of them blow me off, so I started taking in our printed brochures, and I tell them, this is what I was exposed to. You need to take this seriously. And I've asked them to scan this information into my records file, and I do leave brochures at the VA so that other veterans can learn about this. I just try to spread the word because there's so many people out there that don't know that they were poisoned at this place. You know, I just wanted to have a better life, and this sure as hell is not a better life.
Well, I could not be a recruiter right now. I could not, because I see where the VA is not taking care of their own people. And that bothers me because I would have gave my life for our country. And they won't even acknowledge that they had a place that was a fort that was shut down by the EPA, and was shut down and you can't even train here. You have all this money that's gone to waste, and they still won't take care of their own soldiers. And it's sad. It's a sad day for America.
A sad day indeed.
The symptoms of nerve agent poisoning are running nose, tightness in chest, dimness of vision, difficulty in breathing, drooling and sweating, nausea, vomiting, cramps, twitching, jerking, staggering, headache, confusion, drowsiness, coma, convulsions, cessation of breathing. If you detect any of the symptoms shown, stop breathing, mask immediately, take atropine. Although their effect on the body is the same, the nerve agents differ slightly in their physical characteristics. GA was the first to be developed. Unlike the others, it has a faint odor, something like fruity chewing gum. It would probably be encountered in the form of a non-persistent vapor or aerosol. GB has no odor. It is about 4 times as toxic when inhaled as GA. It also would normally be encountered in the form of vapor or aerosol. V agents are also odorless. The most important difference, however, is their slow rate of evaporation. Although a V agent may be used as a vapor or aerosol, it is most likely to be encountered as a liquid contaminant, producing casualties by contact as well as by...
Now, before we begin this next section, it's important to note that all of the following bills were introduced to the 113th Congress. H.R. 411, the bill they say started it all. It attempted to get this train moving. Penned by Congressman Tonko out of New York, the genius of this bill is that it put the political machine in motion as it relates to the vets from Fort Mac. The idiocy of this bill, however, is that it does absolutely nothing to help the Fort McClellan veterans get the medical care they so desperately need. All H.R. 411 does is creates a registry of veterans' names that may, let me say that part again, a registry of veterans' names that may have been exposed to toxins, and that's it. It's not as if the members of Congress need any more reasons to do their jobs. So if we're going to try and get some sort of legislation in place for the Fort McClellan veterans, let's at the least make it something that actually does something for these folks. So now comes H.R. 5484, the Toxic Exposure Research Act of 2014, put onto paper by Congressman Dan Benishek from Michigan. And to give you some history, Congressman Benishek sits as the chairman on the subcommittee for all legislation regarding toxic exposure at Fort McClellan. What this means is that he's the guy who decides if a bill can go to the floor for a vote. And as of December 6, 2014, he, Congressman Benishek, hasn't let a single piece of legislation hit the floor for a vote. And seeing how he inked this gem right before the congressional break, we'll have to wait and see just how quick his bill gets a vote. But before we get carried away and go off on a rant, you make the call on this one. The good, it gets care for the veterans' dependents. The not so good, it only covers the dependents, not the actual veterans. Now it's time to start confusing you, and we'll start by telling you about H.R. 4816, the Toxic Exposure Research and Military Family Support Act of 2014. Listen close now. This is where things will start going sideways. H.R. 4816 is essentially the exact same bill as H.R. 5484. You remember Congressman Benishek's bill, the subcommittee chairman guy? Now, I know, you're all wondering the same thing we are. If Congressman Benishek likes H.R. 4816 so much he had to copy it, then why wouldn't he let H.R. 4816 go out for a vote? Well, I'll tell you my thoughts. Ego. Plain and simple, Benishek wants to be the savior to the cause, or something along those lines. Oh, and it wouldn't surprise me in the least to find out that there was some sort of fat tied to this bill that somehow, someway, secures some sort of financial gain for Mr. Benishek. Now, in order to speed this whole thing along and to hopefully quell your urge to do bodily harm to yourself, at this point on our ride, I'm going to make these next two really simple. Senate Bills 2738 and 1602. Once again, two nearly identical bills, and not just to each other, but also to H.R. 4816, which, if you're all still on the train with me, this was the one that was one Yahoo's bill, which was also the same as the other Yahoo's bill, which means if I haven't completely lost you, there are 4 pieces of federal legislation that say the same damn thing. Jesus, I'm sure if these guys would just work together, they could work a deal that would line all their pockets with plenty of ill-gotten gains. Yet, all of this is overshadowed by the fact that not one of these 4 bills does anything to help the Fort McClellan veterans. For those of you whom we haven't completely overwhelmed, well, first off, let me just say congratulations for making it this far. We know it's been a bumpy ride, and because of that, allow us a chance to let the sunshine in. Because somehow, someway, someone finally came up with a piece of legislation that not only draws all of the good pieces from all of those mind-numbing bills, but then it goes one step further and has seemingly covered everything the vets need, and not just the Fort McClellan vets, but just about all vets. Now, before you get too far ahead and try to showbiz us, no, I'm not joking. If I was joking, I would probably go something like this. Knock, knock. But this, my friends, I assure you, is real. H.R. 5680, the Veterans Toxic Wounds Research Act of 2014, written by Representative Tim Waltz of Minnesota. So, Mr. Waltz, my hat's off to you on this one. But don't let it go to your head because, well, you're a politician, dude. My only hope for H.R. 5680 at this point is that it makes it past good old Congressman Benishek's subcommittee, so I guess it ends up boiling down to Benishek doing the right thing for the veterans. All without touching on the subject of the children. Innocent collateral damage in a war of toxic recognition or the lack thereof. Here is Debbie Blackwood. She joined the Army in April of '78. 6 toxic years later, her daughter Amber was born. Born with her internal organs in the wrong places and 2 heart defects. Amber had emergency surgery at 10 days old. The doctors gave Amber a 20% chance to live, but Amber was a fighter. She continued that fight until 3 months after her 21st birthday, when she left toxic body. Amber's story is a tragic one, but it's also one of many.
My children have all been sick under my roof. My son got cancer at 3, and my grandson had cancer at 3 years old. My granddaughter had heart problems, and my daughter has a blood disorder. She had blood clots in both of her lungs. And none of this is in my family history at all.
The day we started this crazy journey of toxic service, we knew that at some point we would end up in D.C. And sure enough, before too long, we found ourselves touching down at Reagan International Airport, armed with scheduled interviews with Representatives David Cicilline, Democrat, Carol Shea Porter, Democrat, Steve Daines, Republican, Mike Thompson, Democrat, and Shelley Pingree, Democrat, all of whom ultimately ended up refusing to talk with us directly. And this, after our people contacted their people, months ago, mind you, and made it very clear who we are, what we are doing, and that we needed to speak with these yahoos directly because we intended to film them. I mean, how insane are these people? Who refuses to talk to someone like that? I suppose the reality of these folks having to do their jobs by speaking to the very people who elect them into office must have scared them. But we're not bitter. We're not. Seriously. We hold no ill will towards any of these people, only to say, thanks for screwing up our film. Or did the refusal to talk just make this whole thing a whole lot more interesting? Here is a list of all the members in the House of Representatives 113th Congress that have chosen profits over the Fort McClellan vets. And for those of you who don't believe me or think that we're being a bit overdramatic, I challenge you. I challenge you to show us one member who actually stood up and did something, anything, for the Fort McClellan veterans.
think I'm alright. I 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 think I'm alright.
But it came about through my business partner. He called me up one day while we're in the middle of 2 other projects and says, "Hey, I've been doing some research for the last week or so now about my time out of Fort McClellan, and you won't believe what went on out there," and I didn't know.
Better than Orson Welles, he left to join the training infantry brigade at Fort McClellan. She was in the Women's Army Corps with about 10,000 others. A devoted spouse and mother, willing to prove how much she loved it. The place was overwhelming, but in a good way, an extended family. So when she saw some personnel and protective gear, she thought nothing of it. Everyone's attention was overseas, so it was easy to overlook, but the home team wasn't willing to share with them openly. He was discharged with a shrapnel wound, got patched up and got a better medal, but people kept the peace of the war with them, and so did he. What did I seek? What did I find? What did I earn? When the lights out, I find myself wondering what I got in return. Am I guilty for having faith? Did I just devote my entire
The start of a big chapter in my life, but it's still going on today.
I heard more than ever, what am I worth? I deserve an explanation as to why it's worse. These bullets take time to sink in, but nonetheless, this is cutthroat. Would it be treason to think to myself, where the love goes? Years after her service, she starts noticing things. She feels she bruises too easy, but she doesn't know.
And at one point we're paddling and there's dead fish and dead snakes floating around in the river. And I paddled up to the captain and I said, "You know, Captain," I said, "I grew up in the swamp and they're not supposed to be floating." And he just, "Don't worry about it, keep going."
That's the odd part. Naturally, some questions arose, but he had trouble writing them freely. Nobody knew about these silent killers like Agent Orange, and even when the gig was up, it wasn't made of any great importance. The core system denied the basis of what she was claiming, and because of the one boot policy, she couldn't prove she got sick from training. Monsanto got caught with the pants down, got a slap on the wrist. The military did nothing for her, turned their back on her quick. He couldn't help thinking the deal went down right above his head with a loneliness like no other. He understood that the love was dead. What did I seek? What did I find? What did I earn? When the lights out, I find myself wondering what I got in return. Am I guilty for having faith? Did I just devote my entire life to someone that's gonna watch me burn? Where'd the love go? And I heard more than ever, what am I worth? I deserve an explanation as to why it's worse. These bullets take time to sink in, but nonetheless, this is cutthroat. Would it be treason to think to myself, where'd the love go?
And they need to help us. We need the help. We need medical benefits, compensation, whatever. They need to recognize that we were and are sick.
Tell me, am I going crazy? Am I a fool? Am I the walking dead or am I dead on? The pain in my heart outweighs what's happening physically, and now I see it clear as day that I was just a pawn. Guess it's my fault. My fault. My fault. What did I seek? What did I find? What did I earn? When the lights out, I find myself wondering what I got in return. Am I guilty for having faith?
I don't care if they're a chemical corps, I don't care if they're an MP corps, WAG, supply collecting station. They were all drinking the water, they were all bathing in the water, they were all eating the food prepared for this water.
As to why it's worse. These bullets take time to sink in, but nonetheless, this is cutthroat. Would it be treason to think to myself, where'd the love go? I think I'm alright. 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 think I'm alright. Our hero grew up with a sense of pride. Parents didn't live expensive lives, knew the value of a dollar, budgeted, put the rent aside, stressed the importance of education and patriotism. So when he won the draft lottery in 1969, maybe it fit him. Tears welling up, so many sentiments his parents couldn't afford to tell him. They patted him on his back, a little misinformed about what the war was selling. Civil duty called, and he played the role better than Orson Welles. He left to join the training infantry brigade at Fort McClellan. She was in the Women's Army Corps with about 10,000 others, a devoted spouse and mother, willing to prove how much she loved it. The place was overwhelming, but in a good way, an extended family. So when she saw some personnel and protective gear, she thought nothing of it. Everyone's attention was overseas, so it was easy to overlook what the home team wasn't willing to share with them openly. He was discharged with a shrapnel wound, got patched up and got a better medal, but people kept the peace of the war with him, and so did he. What did I seek? What did I find? What did I earn? When the lights out, I find myself wondering what I got in return. Am I guilty for having faith? Did I just devote my entire life to someone that's gonna watch me burn? Where'd the love go? And I heard more than ever, what's am I worth? I deserve an explanation as to why it's worse. These bullets take time to sink in, but nonetheless this is cutthroat. Would it be treason to think to myself, where'd the love go? Years after her service, she starts noticing things. She feels she bruises too easy, but she doesn't know what it means. We're brittle bones. She helplessly watches the light destroy. No history of medical conditions, but a newborn is on life support. Our hero had a heart attack in his early 30s. That's unheard of. His doctor informed him he had diabetes, but it doesn't even run in his family, and that's the odd part. Naturally some questions arose, but he had trouble writing them freely. Nobody knew about these silent killers like Agent Orange, and even when the gig was up, it wasn't made of any great importance. The court system denied the basis of what she was claiming, and because of the one boot policy, she couldn't prove she got sick from training. Monsanto got caught with the pants down, got a slap on the wrist. The military did nothing for her, turned their back on her quick. He couldn't help thinking the deal went down right above his head with a loneliness like no other. He understood that the love was dead. What did I seek? What did I find? What did I earn? When the lights out, I find myself wondering what I got in return. Am I guilty for having faith? Did I just devote my entire life to someone that's gonna watch me burn? Where'd the love go? And I heard more than ever, what's am I worth? I deserve an explanation as to why it's worse. These bullets take time to sink in, but nonetheless this is cutthroat. Would it be treason to think to myself, where'd the love go? I wanted you, I thought you needed me. I thought I was a part of something, thought that I belonged, and I was there for you, fought for you, killed strangers at your behest. I'm ill, who's there to right your wrongs? Tell me, am I going crazy? Am I a fool? Am I the walking dead, or am I dead on? The pain in my heart outweighs what's happening physically, and now I see it clear as day that I was just a pawn. Guess it's my fault. My fault, my fault. What did I seek? What did I find? What did I earn? When the lights out, I find myself wondering what I got in return. Am I guilty for having faith? Did I just devote my entire life to someone that's gonna watch me burn? Where'd the love go? And I heard more than ever, what's am I worth? I deserve an explanation as to why it's worse. These bullets take time to sink in, but nonetheless this is cutthroat. Would it be treason to think to myself, where'd the love go?